Hi chess fans. Today we have a very nice game played between Magnus Carlsen in 2010, the Chess Olympiad, against the Spanish Grandmaster Francisco Vallejo. I hope I pronounced the last correctly, Pons or Pons. We start with e4, c5, Carlsen is white here, knight c3 and now a6. The idea behind a6 is to follow up with later b5 to gain space on the queen side, and you want to develop your bishop on b7. Personally, I'm a bit of a bigger fan of playing knight c6 here, but this is just personal preference. a6 itself is of course fine. Game continues with knight g to e2, d6, g3, preparing the fianchetto, knight to c6, bishop g2, preparing the fianchetto as well on the king side, d3, bishop to g7, bishop e3, and now knight f6. Now the move h3 makes sense in the position, absolutely. White wants to prevent the black knight to go to g4, where it can attack the white bishop that Carlsen wants to keep. So that's why bishop d7, and now queen to d2, supporting the bishop that we potentially want to exchange versus the bishop on g7, which is a very common theme in these type of positions. b5, there we have the expansion on the queen side, and indeed there we also have bishop to h6, offering to exchange the bishops. Now the idea is that after, for example, castles, white takes on g7, and after king to g7, the king position is a bit weakened, as the dark squares around the king are actually the weak squares here, and the g6 pawn in some situations can be a bit harassed. We can launch a kingside attack with ideas of pushing the pawn, so we can create a pawn storm with moves like g4 and f4 later. So that's the basic idea behind it. Black is actually fine to castle in this position, but decided not to. And after the offer of trade of bishops actually accepted instantly and took himself, well, now we get queen on h6, and it's in my opinion a little bit more annoying even. The queen shines instantly into the position, prevents black from castling king side. We don't want to castle queen side because we have our pawns forward a lot. It's not locked at all, so white can absolutely break it open, especially with the bishop on g2, so we do want to castle king side, it looks like. And we can also not now play knight to g8 to kick away the queen, because oops, queen g7, and that will cost a lot of material. So the white queen will be harassing black a bit by being on h6. In this position, black played knight to d4, and after the trade, Carlsen played knight to e2, attacking the pawn, which then was defended by e5. Well, now white castles, and you can see that the queen is still harassing black, and has given white some tempo more or less, whilst black needs to sort the problem. So white can create a bit of an attacking position, the white king is safe, and the black king not yet. However, since we played e5, we can now play knight to g8, attacking the queen, and now Carlsen needs to retreat, and he plays his queen to d2 for that purpose. It could, by the way, play this move, because if now queen g7, we have of course queen to f6, so that's why that was possible. And now after the retreat of the white queen, we have knight to e7, f4. I'm always a big fan of f4, and for the same reason as in this position, we threaten a lot. It's just very nice. We threaten to capture on e5, opening the f-file for our rooks. We potentially can play f5 in the future, and well, gain space, to name one thing. Alternatively, we can mess up the pawn structure further, since we have a pawn on g6, and launch an attack. And in some lines, it might even be possible, if it's allowed and if it's beneficial for us, to move the pawn all the way to f6, creating havoc for the black position. So very nice little move. Black here castles, and after the castle we get g4, very nice again, supporting a future f5, and not ruling out f takes e either. So very good so far. f6, rook to f2. Again, we are creating the situation that we keep the tension a little bit on the board, and we will only move forward to capture and open the f file when it is most beneficial for us. So clearly it's clear that we here prepare to play rook to f1. Now black plays knight to c6, rook a to f1. Again, we now doubling the rooks, and now f takes e5 might be an option soon. Queen to a5 makes a lot of sense. Black wants to relieve some of the pressure, so it offers a queen trade, and aside of the queen trade, it threatens to take on a2. So which of the two do you want? And Carlsen says, you know what, I'll keep my queen on the board, you take the a2 pawn, whilst I do serious stuff towards your king. Black accepts, and honestly, sorry, this is still a position that is still okay for black, it's still very playable. Here white comes with g5, and after f takes g5, please note that white should not take towards any pawn, because black is now the first to open up the f file, and if we now would, let's say, take the pawn back, so f takes g5, then black can relieve pressure by playing rook takes f2, and after the recapture, black even continues with d takes c3, knight takes c3, and after queen a5, this is a totally fine position now for black to play. Of course, white has potential future ideas of playing knight to d5 to f6, but black has time, and black has a very nice position with an additional pawn as well. If we would say, okay, we want recapture, or we go in the other direction, so f takes e, well, we have kind of the same thing. We get rook takes f, and after rook takes f, we get d takes e5, and now it's even a bit of a better position for black. So what do we have then? Well, we have a move that we mentioned before, actually, f5. Very nice little move, and now the tables are a bit turned, because black cannot take the pawn, because after g takes f5, queen takes g5 check. King needs to move, that much is clear. The next move we still play e takes f5, and not only do we have a very nice passed pawn, we will have a bishop that's going to be a monster on the long diagonal, and the black king is not safe at all. So those are many factors that are all in the favor of white. So of course black does not opt for that and plays the best move on the board, which is queen f7. After queen f7, c takes. Now rook a to e8, and funny, if we now take, recapture, this again looks reasonable for black, although white is better. But Carlsen here plays the annoying little move d5, harassing the innocent little knight. So the horse needs to move, goes to d4, and after takes, this is absolutely beautiful to see, we now have f6. Just look at this, we have now a beautiful passed pawn. It is absolutely amazing. So the pawn is on f6, harassing black terrible. It's supported by two of white rooks. In a way, it's also supported by the d5 pawn, as it guards e6. It makes it very difficult, if not impossible, for black to add more attackers to the pawn. And yeah, there is no field called f9, so we cannot pile up to the white pawn at all. To make matters worse, the queen on d2 is threatening to win the pawn on c5. So what to do? Black here played g4. Now, perhaps it looks odd on first impression, but there are really no good alternatives. So let's say h6. What white will play then is just a simple queen b4, attacking the pawn on d6, which is difficult to be defended. Actually, it cannot be defended directly, and if you try to defend it indirectly by rook to d8, we still capture, and after bishop takes h3, queen takes a6, and well, that's all she wrote. So that was not an option. So alternatively, g4, it's the only alternative actually, if you want to not allow queen capture g5. And yeah, now we just have h takes c4. And after bishop takes, queen f4 attacks both pawn and bishop, and it's just horrible for black. h5, boom, queen takes d6, and what do we see? We see 3 connected passed pawns. I mean, how often do you see that? This is absolutely devastating, and it was in this position that black resigned, and the resigning is very much justified. You can really not do anything, although it might look like you have perhaps connected passed pawns yourself on g6 and h5. They really cannot go down. You will open up your king more, and it's no competition for the white pawns either. Let's just show you if it would play out. g5, we just play the very logical move e5, and after h4, boom, e6. They're just small little tanks. I don't know what else to call them, bulldozers perhaps. So e6, bishop takes e6 is the best move here, and after pawn takes, rook takes, we just even play queen c5, and we threaten so much. Aside of being up a piece already, we threaten to take down g5. Bishop to d5 is current threat that's there. This is totally game over. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you thought of this game, and let me know what kind of games you want me to analyze next, or perhaps you want me to do something else chess related. Leave it in the comments. I read them, I respond to them, and I will follow up on any popular ideas that are there. For now, thanks, have good games, and see you later. Bye bye.